So today I want to discuss something that is going to change everything you think you know about this war. Everything. And I need you to pay very close attention because what I am about to tell you is not being discussed on CNN. It is not being discussed on Fox News. It is not being discussed in the Pentagon press briefings, and there is a very good reason for that. Because if the American public understood what I am about to explain, there would be panic. Real panic. Okay, so here's the setup. Everyone thinks they understand this war. America has the most powerful military in history. F-35 stealth fighters, aircraft carriers, satellite surveillance that can read a license plate from space, Patriot missile defense, THAAD, Aegis destroyers, billions and billions of dollars of the most advanced detection and defense technology ever created by any civilization. And Iran? Iran is a sanctioned country, a developing nation, limited access to Western technology, limited manufacturing capability. That is what everyone thinks, and everyone is wrong. Because Iran has developed something that the Pentagon did not anticipate, something that American intelligence failed to detect for years, something that renders the most expensive military technology in history obsolete. And today I am going to tell you exactly what it is, how it works, why America cannot stop it, and what it means for the future of warfare itself. So let me walk you through this carefully. First, I am going to explain the fundamental flaw in American military thinking, the flaw that made this vulnerability inevitable. Second, I am going to show you the weapon itself, what it is, how Iran developed it, and why it changes everything. Third, I am going to show you the battlefield evidence, the proof that this weapon is already working. And fourth, I'm going to show you why this pattern has repeated throughout military history and why dominant military powers always lose to this exact kind of innovation. Let us begin. First, I need you to understand something about how America fights wars, because there is a fatal assumption built into the entire American military system, and that assumption is about to destroy them. America fights wars by seeing. That is the foundation of everything. The entire American military doctrine since the 1991 Gulf War has been built on one concept: information dominance. See the enemy before the enemy sees you, track every movement, monitor every communication, map every position, and then strike with precision from a safe distance. This is why America spends more on intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, ISR, than most countries spend on their entire military. The satellites, the drones, the AWACS aircraft, the signals intelligence, the cyber surveillance, all of it serves one purpose: see everything, know everything, and then use that knowledge to destroy the enemy before the enemy can respond. And for 30 years, this worked. It worked in Iraq in 1991, it worked in Afghanistan, it worked in Iraq again in 2003, it worked in Libya, it worked in Syria. Against every enemy America has faced since 1991, information dominance delivered victory. Fast, decisive, overwhelming victory. But, and this is the critical point, all of those enemies had something in common. They were all using conventional military systems, tanks, armored vehicles, radar installations, command centers, fixed military bases, things that emit signals, things that can be seen from space, things that have heat signatures, things that move on roads and communicate on radio frequencies. Against those kinds of targets, American surveillance is devastating, absolutely devastating. You cannot hide a tank battalion from an American satellite. You cannot hide a radar installation from an American signals intelligence aircraft. You cannot hide a command center from American cyber surveillance. But what if? What if you could build a weapon that emits no signal? What if you could build a weapon that has no heat signature? What if you could build a weapon that does not move on roads, does not communicate on radio frequencies, does not look like a weapon at all? What if you could build a weapon that is invisible, not stealth invisible, not radar invisible, actually invisible to everything? Satellites, drones, signals intelligence, electronic surveillance, everything. What happens to American information dominance then? It becomes worthless. Completely, totally, absolutely worthless. Billions of dollars of surveillance technology reduced to expensive junk. And that is exactly what Iran has done. Okay, so now let me tell you about the weapon. And I want to be very precise because precision matters here. Iran has spent the last 20 years developing what military analysts call a distributed autonomous weapons network. Now, that sounds complicated. Let me break it down. Distributed. This means the weapon is not in one place. It is not in a military base. It is not in a bunker. It is not in a factory. It is spread across the entire country. In thousands of locations, in tens of thousands of locations, in civilian buildings, in basements, in warehouses, in mountain tunnels, in underground facilities that America does not even know exist. Autonomous, this means each unit operates independently. There is no central command that America can destroy. There is no communication network that America can jam. There is no headquarters that America can bomb. Each unit has its own targeting data, its own mission, its own launch capability. You cannot decapitate this system because it has no head. Weapons network. This means all of these distributed, autonomous units are part of a single strategic system. They are designed to work together, not through communication, but through pre-planned coordination. Each unit knows its role. Each unit knows its target. Each unit knows its timing. They do not need to talk to each other because the plan was built years ago. Now let me get specific, very specific, because I want you to understand the scale of what Iran has built. Iran has an estimated 5,000 to 10,000 mobile missile launchers hidden across the country. These are not large vehicles. These are small, truck-mounted launchers that look like ordinary commercial vehicles. A flatbed truck carrying what appears to be construction equipment, a shipping container on the back of a semi-trailer, a van parked in a warehouse. From the outside, from a satellite, from a drone. These look like nothing. They look like everyday civilian vehicles, but inside each one is a launch system capable of firing 1 to 4 ballistic missiles or cruise missiles with a range of 300 to 2,000 kilometers. And here is the crucial detail. These launchers are sealed. They emit no electronic signal. They have no radar. They do not communicate with any command center. They sit in silence. Complete electronic silence. They are invisible to every detection system America possesses. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You are thinking, Professor Jiang, America has satellites that can see everything. Surely America can find these launchers. And here is where I need you to understand the mathematics of detection, because the math is devastating for America. Iran is a country of 1.65 million square kilometers. That is 4 times the size of Iraq. It is a vast country with mountains, deserts, cities, towns, villages, forests, and millions of buildings and vehicles. Finding a single truck that looks like every other truck in a country of 1.65 million square kilometers is not just difficult, it is mathematically impossible with current technology. Let me give you an analogy. Imagine I tell you that somewhere in the state of Alaska, there is one specific white pickup truck. It looks exactly like 500,000 other white pickup trucks. It is parked in a garage. Find it. Using only cameras mounted on airplanes flying at 60,000 feet. You cannot do it. Nobody can do it. Not the CIA, not the NSA, not the NRO, not with every satellite and every drone and every surveillance aircraft in the American inventory combined. The search space is too large. The target signature is too small. The camouflage is too perfect. And Iran does not have one launcher. Iran has thousands, and Iran has been hiding them for 20 years. Moving them, relocating them, building new tunnel complexes, constructing underground facilities that are invisible from the surface. This is Iran's secret weapon. Not one miracle device, not one super missile, but a system, a distributed, autonomous, undetectable system that turns the entire country of Iran into one giant weapons platform. Now, I want to show you something even more disturbing, because the launchers are only part of the system. The second part is the tunnels. Iran has been building underground tunnel networks for at least 2 decades, and the scale is almost beyond comprehension. Western intelligence estimates suggest that Iran has built over 3,000 kilometers of underground tunnels. 3,000 kilometers. That is the distance from New York to Los Angeles. Underground, carved through mountains, reinforced with concrete, shielded against bunker-buster bombs, connected to underground manufacturing facilities, underground missile storage, underground command centers, and underground launch silos. The IRGC released footage in 2015 showing journalists one of these tunnel complexes. Just one, and it was enormous. Rows upon rows of ballistic missiles on mobile launchers deep inside a mountain, ready to drive out and fire within minutes. That was 2015. That was one tunnel. That was what Iran wanted the world to see. What about the tunnels Iran does not want the world to see? American intelligence has identified approximately 30 to 40 major tunnel complexes in Iran. But here is what the intelligence community admits privately. That number represents perhaps 30 to 40% of the actual tunnel network. The majority of Iran's underground military infrastructure remains undetected, and here is why this matters so much for America's strategy. America's primary weapon in this war is air power, bombing. The B-2 stealth bomber, the F-35, cruise missiles, and America does have very powerful bunker buster bombs. The GBU-57, the massive ordnance penetrator, weighs 30,000 pounds and can penetrate 60 meters of concrete, but Iran's deepest tunnel complexes are estimated to be 80 to 100 meters underground. Below the penetration depth of any bomb in the American inventory, America literally does not have a weapon that can reach these facilities. And even if it did, it would need to know where they are. And it does not know where they are. So, the American strategy of bombing Iran into submission has a fundamental problem. You cannot bomb what you cannot find, and you cannot destroy what you cannot reach. And Iran has spent 20 years making sure that its most important military assets cannot be found and cannot be reached. Now, I want to show you the third element of this system, and this is the one that I think is most brilliant from a strategic perspective: the drones. Iran's drone program is, let me find the right word, revolutionary. And I do not use that word casually. Iran has done something with drone technology that no other country has achieved. Iran has made drone warfare economically invincible. Let me explain what I mean. A single Iranian Shahed drone costs approximately $20,000 to $50,000 to produce. It is simple. It uses a small combustion engine, off-the-shelf electronics, basic GPS guidance. It carries a warhead of 30 to 50 kilograms. It has a range of up to 2,500 kilometers, and it flies low, very low, below radar coverage, through valleys, through terrain features. It is slow, yes, about 180 kilometers per hour, but it is low, and it is small. And against radar systems designed to track fast, high-flying aircraft and ballistic missiles, it is nearly invisible. Now here is the math. This is the math that terrifies the Pentagon. One Shahed drone, $30,000. One Patriot interceptor missile to shoot it down, $4 million. One SM-6 interceptor from an Aegis destroyer, $5 million. The cost exchange ratio is 100 to 1. For every dollar Iran spends on drones, America must spend $100 on defense. That is not sustainable. That is not even close to sustainable. And Iran does not launch one drone. In October 2024, Iran launched over 300 drones and missiles in a single salvo. 300. And Iran has been building these drones in factories across the country for years. Western intelligence estimates suggest Iran has stockpiled between 10,000 and 30,000 drones of various types. Some analysts believe the number is even higher. So let us do the math. If Iran has 20,000 Shahed drones and each costs $30,000, that is $600 million total. The cost to intercept all of them? At $4 million per interceptor, $80 billion, $80 billion. And that assumes every interceptor hits its target, which they do not. The actual intercept rate against low-flying drones is estimated at 40 to 60%. So America would need even more interceptors. Perhaps $120 billion to $150 billion worth. Iran spent $600 million. America needs to spend $150 billion. That is a 250 to 1 cost exchange ratio. In military history, that is annihilation, not physical annihilation, financial annihilation. You are not losing soldiers, you are losing your economy. And remember, while America is spending $150 billion trying to shoot down drones that cost $30,000 each, Iran is building more, because $30,000 drones can be built in small workshops, in basements, in garages, in any small factory with basic machine tools. You cannot bomb Iran's drone production capability because Iran's drone production capability is spread across thousands of small workshops that look like auto repair shops from the sky. This is the weapon America cannot detect. Not because it is invisible in the traditional sense, but because it is everywhere. It is distributed, it is decentralized, it is hidden in plain sight. And it is so cheap that destroying it costs more than building it. Now, I want to show you the battlefield evidence, because everything I have told you so far is theory, strategy, analysis, but the evidence is already in. Look at what has happened in this war so far. The Gerald Ford aircraft carrier, $13 billion, the most expensive warship ever built. It was deployed to the Persian Gulf to project American power, to intimidate Iran, to show the world that America controls these waters. And within 3 weeks, it had to retreat. Not because it was sunk, but because the threat environment was too dangerous. Iranian anti-ship ballistic missiles, Iranian drones, Iranian fast attack boats. The carrier group could not guarantee its own safety. $13 billion retreated from $50,000 drones, the F-35 fighter jet, $100 million per aircraft, the most advanced stealth fighter in history. And what happened? Iran's air defense systems, a combination of Russian S-300 technology and Iranian domestic systems, detected and tracked F-35s. The stealth that was supposed to make the F-35 invisible did not work against Iranian radar systems that had been specifically calibrated to detect it. How did Iran calibrate its radar to detect the F-35? Because Iran studied the F-35 for 15 years. Iran's electronic warfare specialists analyzed every public document, every leaked specification, every radar signature from F-35 operations in Syria, Iraq, and the Persian Gulf. They built simulation models. They developed counter-detection algorithms. And when the time came, they were ready. The Patriot missile defense system, billions of dollars, deployed across the Gulf states to protect American allies, and Iranian drones flew right past it, because the Patriot was designed to intercept ballistic missiles flying high and fast, not small drones flying low and slow. The radar literally cannot see them until they are too close to intercept. Now, I want you to think about what all of this means together. The carrier retreated, the stealth fighter was detected, the missile defense failed. 3 of America's most important and most expensive military systems, all neutralized. Not by a technological superpower, not by China or Russia, by Iran, a sanctioned developing nation that spent a fraction of what America spent and achieved better results. This is the revolution in warfare that nobody in the American media is willing to discuss. Because discussing it means admitting something that the military-industrial complex absolutely cannot afford to admit, that the entire model of American warfare, expensive platforms, high technology, information dominance, is broken. Not bending, not stressed, broken. Now, let me bring in the history, because this has happened before, and understanding the history will show you why the outcome is inevitable. The first example, the English longbow versus the French knight. For centuries, the armored knight dominated European warfare. Knights were expensive, a full suit of armor, a war horse, years of training, a retinue of squires and servants. A single knight cost more than an entire village produced in a year. And knights were devastating on the battlefield. Nothing could stop them until the longbow, a simple weapon, a piece of wood and a string, cost almost nothing. A peasant could learn to use it in months. And at the Battle of Crécy in 1346, and again at Agincourt in 1415, English longbowmen destroyed French knights. Thousands of the most expensive military assets in Europe destroyed by peasants with cheap wooden bows. The expensive, dominant weapon system was defeated by a cheap, distributed, mass-produced alternative. Sound familiar? The second example, the submarine versus the battleship. In the early 20th century, the battleship was the ultimate expression of naval power. Enormous, expensive, heavily armored, bristling with guns. Nations measured their power by counting battleships, and then came the submarine. Small, cheap, relatively simple, and devastating. German U-boats in World War I nearly starved Britain into surrender. A fleet of cheap submarines defeated the most powerful navy in the world. Again, the expensive, dominant platform was neutralized by a cheaper, harder-to-detect alternative. The third example, the IED versus the American armored vehicle. In Iraq and Afghanistan, the most powerful military in the world spent 20 years fighting against improvised explosive devices. Homemade bombs, made from artillery shells and cell phone detonators, costing perhaps $100 each. And America spent billions on armored vehicles, electronic countermeasures, and detection technology to counter them. The cost-exchange ratio was absurd, and America still could not solve the problem. Do you see the pattern? Throughout military history, whenever a dominant power invests everything in expensive, centralized, high-technology weapon systems, a challenger finds a way to neutralize those systems with cheap, distributed, low-technology alternatives. Every time, without exception. The French knight was defeated by the longbow. The battleship was defeated by the submarine. The armored convoy was defeated by the IED. And now, the aircraft carrier, The stealth fighter and the missile defense system are being defeated by the drone. This is the pattern, and Iran understood this pattern better than anyone because Iran has been studying American military power for 40 years, looking for exactly these vulnerabilities, and they found them. Now, I want to discuss one more element of this secret weapon system that I think is the most dangerous of all, and this is the one that keeps Pentagon planners awake at night: the sleeper network. Iran does not only have weapons inside Iran, Iran has spent decades building proxy networks and pre-positioned capabilities across the entire Middle East. Hezbollah in Lebanon, militias in Iraq, the Houthis in Yemen, cells in Bahrain, networks in Kuwait, operatives across the Gulf states. Each of these networks has access to weapons, drones, missiles, explosives, anti-ship mines. Each of these networks can be activated independently, and each of these networks is invisible to American surveillance until it activates. This means that Iran can strike from any direction, from Lebanon, from Iraq, from Yemen, from inside the Gulf states themselves, and America cannot defend against all of these simultaneously. It is impossible. The geography is too vast, the threat vectors are too numerous, the targets are too many, and this is the ultimate expression of Iran's strategic doctrine. Do not meet the empire head-on, surround it, bleed it from every direction simultaneously, make the cost of defense impossible, make the cost of occupation unthinkable, make the cost of war unsustainable. This is not a new idea. This is ancient Persian strategy. The Parthians used it against Rome for 300 years. They did not meet the Roman legions in pitched battle. They harassed, they retreated, they ambushed. They made the Romans chase them across vast distances. They exhausted the most powerful military machine of the ancient world. And 2,000 years later, Iran is using the same strategy against the most powerful military machine of the modern world. Different technology, same principle, and the same result. So, let me bring this all together. What is Iran's secret weapon? It is not one weapon, it is a system, a philosophy, a strategic doctrine that turns Iran's supposed weaknesses into devastating strengths. America has expensive weapons. Iran has cheap weapons. But cheap weapons in massive quantities defeat expensive weapons because the math does not work. America has satellites and surveillance. Iran has dispersion and camouflage. You cannot find what is hidden in plain sight across 1.65 million square kilometers. America has air power. Iran has tunnels. You cannot bomb what is 100 meters underground. America has aircraft carriers. Iran has anti-ship missiles and drones. You cannot project power from a ship that has to run away. America has a centralized command structure. Iran has a distributed autonomous network. You cannot decapitate what has no head. Every American strength has been met with an Iranian counter, not by matching American technology, not by building a bigger army, but by finding the precise vulnerability in each American system and exploiting it with the cheapest possible tool. This is strategic genius. I do not say that because I support Iran. I say that because it is the objective, analytical truth. Iran has done what the French knights could not do against the longbow, what the battleship admirals could not do against the submarine, what the American generals could not do against the IED. Iran saw the future of warfare before anyone else, and it built its entire military around that future. And America? America is still building $13 billion aircraft carriers and $100 million fighter jets. America is still fighting the last war. And the next war, the war that is happening right now, is being fought with $30,000 drones and $50,000 missiles hidden in tunnels and basements and shipping containers across a country the size of Alaska. The war has already changed. The Pentagon knows it. The generals know it. The intelligence community knows it, but nobody is saying it publicly because saying it means admitting that trillions of dollars of American military spending has been wasted. And the military-industrial complex, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, will never allow that admission, because that admission means the end of their business model. So the war continues. America keeps dropping expensive bombs on targets it cannot find. Iran keeps building cheap weapons in factories it cannot detect. And every day that passes, the cost-exchange ratio gets worse for America, and the strategic position gets stronger for Iran. The weapon America cannot detect is not a missile, it is not a drone, it is not a bomb. The weapon America cannot detect is a strategy, a 3,000-year-old strategy refined for the 21st century. And against that strategy, America has no answer. Okay, I think that is enough for today. Was this interesting? Good? Was this clear? Good. I will see you in the next class.